Alright guys, so today I want to talk about the build that I played in Turmoil. This is still in Turmoil. Turmoil doesn't end for a couple days, but I've hit level 90, and this is pretty much where you need to be to get the max rewards, so I'm probably going to stop here. Yeah, so let's just talk quickly about what this is. So this is a Scorching Ray Trickster. Uses a variety of skills, but the main skill is Scorching Ray. Yeah, so the gear that I ended up with at the end of this race, when I hit level 90, it's all pretty basic stuff, and I'll explain a lot about how I progressed and that kind of thing. I think this is a great build for like beginning a league. It's the first time I've played it, but I made this build myself from scratch. Although the general concept I would say is pretty well known. So there's only really like one core unique item for this build, and that's Pyre. You don't have to use Pyre, but the reason I like Pyre for this build is because it gives us 80% increased burning damage. So it's just a big, fat chunk of damage. I ended up using a Tabula pretty much the whole race. There's a chest I was trying to 6-link, but I never got it. But I felt like having a 6-link for damage was just the best that I could Like, I didn't need defenses from other things. I'm like res capped and have plenty of life and mana. So yeah, so tabulas are great until you can have actually get a real chest. All the rest of my gear is rares that I found with life and resist, generally speaking. So let's start with Scorching Ray, the main skill. So if you play the game, your skills will hit level 20 around the time that your character reaches level 90. So pretty much almost all of my gems are level 20 at this point, except for ones I've like recently reset. But the main links are Scorching Ray, Burning Damage, Elemental Focus, Efficacy, Controlled Destruction, and Swift Affliction. When you're beginning this build, you want to get like a +1 Scepter, as like in Act 2, a +1 to Fire Gems Crystal Scepter. With 3 blues, and then you can link up Scorching Ray, Elemental Focus, and Controlled Destruction, and that'll get you a large part of the way through the game. And you can put on this thing like pretty much as soon as you get Scorching Ray at level 12, and it will be a huge damage increase. So highly recommend that to level with. And then let's see, my helmets are rare, just with a bunch of life and some crafted decks, so I have enough decks to use my gems. This contains Orb of Storms, Curse on Hit, Flammability. That's like the core of this, what is now a 4-link for like most of the game. As I progressed later into the game, I got a second Curse and added in Vulnerability. Now it's important to note that Elemental Weakness is also an option here for the Curse, but the thing is, we decrease the enemy's fire resistance so much that the take 33% increased damage from dot is more effective than like another -40% all res, or however much a high level elemental weakness does. We have a quality curse on hit, so these like are 10% stronger. Let's see, and then for my mace, so I have here, this is a mace that I crafted with an Essence of Woe, which gives you a guaranteed spell damage roll. So because Scorching Ray's damage is scaled by spell damage, modifiers spell damage applied to the spell's damage over time, this means that elemental damage, spell damage, or fire damage on, or even burning damage on a one-handed scepter will give you more damage for your skill. So one of the things I was originally planning on using was Doriani's Catalyst, but they were super duper expensive, and I made this mace for like the equivalent of 2 Chaos Orbs. So you can make really good elemental scepters for a skill like Scorching Ray just by like find the base item, either an Opal Scepter or a Void Scepter. They both have 40% LE damage on them, and then from there you just like buy Essences of Woe and you drop it on them, and you see if you can get a good roll. And this is 131% fire spell damage combined, which is like just as much raw damage as a 1% off Perfect Doriani's, and it costs like less than 1/60th of the amount. So be aware of that, and remember, you don't always have to use something like a Doriani's. Things that you will not want on here, you won't want any cold damage because it'll get converted to fire, and that'll break your elemental equilibrium, which is a key part of this build, which I'll talk about in a bit. And you don't want any added fire, obviously. So if there's any added damage onto your thing, whether it's to spells or attacks, it needs to be lightning. I used to have a lightning mace, but this is just better, and I get my elemental equilibrium from my Orb of Storms or from some cast damage taken spells I have. This contains a Flame Dash with faster casting and a Clarity. The reason that this isn't linked to that is faster casting would increase the mana cost of Clarity, and we don't want that. Normally I use Shield Charge all the time to get around, but Flame Dash with faster casting is used to cross gaps that, or get over walls that Shield Charge can't. Now if we switch over to my shield here, this is just a shield with spell damage and resist and some life. The strength is on there for additional life. I would just recommend, like, get a shield with spell damage and life and whatever resist you need. It's cool that with the new shield prefixes you can roll spell damage on just about anything. So, at least anything that requires intelligence. So I would recommend something like this. These are pretty easy to get. I bought this pretty cheap. Actually, I think I found this one off the ground. But yeah, so you can dual wield, but then you can't shield charge. So yeah, if you were to get a unique, something like a Wrathpith would also work pretty well. And linked in here we got my Arctic Armor. So my only orders are Clarity and Arctic Armor. And then I have a Ball Lightning linked to a level 1 cast damage taken. So the only point of this is to fire out the Ball Lightning to apply elemental equilibrium to entire packs when we take damage. Because oftentimes we're like diving into packs and then casting our Scorching Ray, or like casting Scorching Ray, jump away, cast Scorching Ray again, and that kind of thing. Alright, then moving on to jewelry, we just have life and resistance. On our neck, this is like the best breach ring I've ever found. Just like when I'm in a breach, this gives me like an additional 200 flat life or so, which is great. But yeah, just a ring with life and resist is fine. You can also just wear a second pyre. That's entirely up to you. For gloves, this is a pair of gloves I've had since like level 48, and I've just kept using them because they're tri-res in life, and they've been fine. This contains my Stone Golem. You want this for your life regeneration. As a character with Scorching Ray, this skill doesn't hit, which means you can't leech, so you need to rely entirely on life regeneration and flasks. So we've got Shield Charge, Fortify, and faster attacks. I just reset this, but this will level up pretty fast. My belt, I found this off the ground, just life and resist. Pretty standard stuff for what you're looking for in a rare. My boots, found these off the ground and crafted life on them. This contains cast damage taken, increased duration, immortal call, and then an arc. This is for the same purpose as the Ball Lightning, just to apply elemental equilibrium when we're in combat to enemies that are far away and stuff, because the radius of Orb of Storms is, to be honest, not that big. Yeah, so just for enchants, ideally I would want mana and life regeneration if I've been hit recently, but I mean, this was fine, and I've been fine with this. I've got a Curse Immune Flask, Anti-Bleed Flask, Anti-Freeze Flask, Instant Recovery Flask, another Anti-Bleed Flask with... Yeah, so just general stuff. There was a lot of breaches this league because it was Turmoil, so having an Anti-Bleed was really important. As for my passive tree, I'm a Shadow, a Trickster. I think I've already said that, but in terms of my Ascendancy priority, I took Swift Killer first to help me clear faster. Then I took Patient Reaper for the dot and increased life and energy shield and mana recovery. At Merciless, I took Weave the Arcane for more mana. I got this right around the same time that I picked up Mind Over Matter over here. So I'd recommend picking up Weave the Arcane and Mind Over Matter around the same time. And then last, I got Walk the Aether from the Uber Lab for the 24 total increase attack and cast speed if you've used movement skill recently, because you get 20 from that and then just 4% from that. So basically you just shield charge around and do stuff. Our tree, we focus on elemental damage, life, damage over time, some regen. We get elemental overload and elemental equilibrium. I recommend rushing elemental equilibrium as quickly as possible, followed by elemental overload, and then you can wait on Mind Over Matter. Pretty much what I did, I filled out all these shadow nodes here, then got the regen. I ignored this life cluster and just cut straight across Witch, and all down to elemental equilibrium like immediately. That was what I did. So out here, down there, across here, I got the regen, and then I just bailed hard. Got elemental equilibrium, got elemental overload. From there, I pathed into these burning damage nodes. These nodes are really, really good. It's 100% damage for 3 points. I believe from there, I pathed into the Templar nodes. and then I went over here to get the life and mana, and then around that time I got Mind Over Matter when I hit Uber Lab. Came down, have the entirety of the Scion life wheel. Picked up a couple jewels, burning damage and attack and cast speed, burning damage, attack speed, life. And toward the end I came down here and I've been working on this cluster here. If I were at level 91 I would get this point. Alternatively, at level 91, I would get this point, drop this point here, and pick up another jewel socket that had life on it. But yeah, that's this character. It's a pretty great build. Like I said, for beginning a league, it's just very solid, very tanky overall. You got Mind Over Matter and a lot of regen to help you take hits. Like I have, if I haven't killed something recently, I've got almost 400 life per second and almost like 160 mana per second. And so if I've killed something recently, I have 642 life regeneration, and if I've also killed something recently, I have like 269 mana regeneration. So yeah, just overall, it's pretty solid, and it's something that I'd recommend, especially for like beginning the league. So yeah, I'm Savage. This has been my quick update on my Scorching Ray, and it's just something you could use this in Turmoil, future Turmoil leagues, the Mayhem League that's going to be next week on Friday, or even to begin like the new league. Of course, balance changes pending, nothing's set in stone, but I think this build is overall pretty solid. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.